Up shortly on Pearl, it's all the day's top stories in our news at 7:30, followed by the weather report. For a full coverage of today's top stories, don't go away. News at 7:30 is coming up next. The above information was brought to you by Lohong Ferrier, exclusively at Masterpiece by King Fook. The time now is 29 minutes past 7. The time check was brought to you by Chopin.
Hong Kong's first poverty line to be announced on Saturday. Shanghai prepares to launch a pilot free trade zone. And newly released video of the Washington Navy Yard shooting rampage. Good evening. Welcome to TVB News. The hearing of former ICAC Chief Timothy Tong's overspending allegations continued at the Public Accounts Committee today. The current Commissioner and Community Relations Director were called upon again to clarify all the ambiguous responses the former ICAC Chief gave in yesterday's hearing. A key area of today's grilling surrounded the ICAC standing order, which was described by the incumbent Commissioner Simon Pei as the anti-graft body's Bible. Among the standing order stipulations are how expenses such as food and beverages should be filed through a Form 569, which the Community Relations Department stopped using in 2009. Department Director Julie Mu, who's under fire for having alcoholic drinks filed separately under her watch in events involving Timothy Tong, said that using both the required form and file minutes had caused confusion.
The colleagues said that file minutes were better because the information would be in greater detail than the form. So there were questions asked whether the form was a must. As far as we knew, it was not a must, and since it's created a lot of problems, so I decided to stop using the form.
But lawmakers rejected her explanations, saying she should not use file minutes as a way to circumvent the spirit of the form required of all ICAC staff.
Which is to include beverages in the entertainment expenditure to see if there is any overspending. For dinners, $400, lunch, $300. Ms. Mu, you can't tell me that you don't know about the spirit of the form.
Mu insisted that Tong had given the approval for all the purchases in question and pointed out that it was her ex-boss who gave the orders to buy the bottles of the Chinese liquor Mao Tai. Mu also admitted that a detour to Lijiang on a business trip to Yunnan was mostly for pleasure. After sitting through nearly 5 hours of having the ICAC's integrity seriously questioned, the current Commissioner, Simon Pei, announced a thorough review of the standing order.
And this will be a very radical review, and we will review the whole standing order. The purpose is to remove any ambiguities or any update we would put in the standing order. The second measure is a briefing for all the staff in different departments who are responsible for administrative matters. This is to remove any possible misunderstanding.
The hearing, which is to follow up on inconsistencies between Tong's testimony in an earlier hearing and the findings of a separate ICAC review, will continue at a later date.
The Commission on Poverty will meet on Saturday and announce the territory's first poverty line. Sources say it will be defined as half of the median household income. Secretary for Labour and Welfare Matthew Jones says Hong Kong will not adopt policies commonly found in welfare states, but the government will come up with measures to cater to the needs of low-income families. Jenny Lam reports.
Mrs. Lai recalls the long hours at a hospital emergency room when her child had a high fever. They could not afford to see a private doctor, even though her husband was making about $16,000 a month to support their family of 6. The definition of the poverty line to be announced on Saturday will be based on last year's income data. Those making half of the median household income will be considered to be living below the poverty line. So for a family of 6, like Mrs. Lai's, making less than $18,000 a month will be below the poverty line. Using this definition, it's estimated that there are 1.3 million people living in poverty in Hong Kong. An alternative definition of the poverty line is to have welfare payments such as the old age allowance and students' textbook allowance counted as the household income. 3 of Mrs. Lai's children receive textbook allowance. So if this second method of calculation is used, the Lais and another 300,000 people will be living above the poverty line. And if the government's rental subsidy for their public housing flat is also counted, then another 300,000 people will also be above the poverty line. In defining what is poor, the government also cannot identify those who have no income but may have a lot of personal assets. So based on the median household income for the second quarter of this year, the poverty line for a single person and a family of 4 will be set at a monthly income of $3,600 and $15,000 respectively. But for an elderly couple living on their $2,000 or so a month in old age allowance, even if they have properties and savings, they will still be counted as poor.
The poverty line is really just a concept that adopted internationally as a political and a policy measures. But then once we have a poverty line, it would be important for us to have a better understanding of the effectiveness and the way that we should be alleviating poverty.
The Commission on Poverty will also analyse poverty within different groups in the population. For example, elderly people, new migrants and ethnic minorities. Secretary for Labour and Welfare, Matthew Cheung, denied that coming up with the poverty line is the first steps down the slippery slope of a welfare-based society. The target, he says, is to help hard-working families whose income cannot meet their basic needs. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Shanghai will unveil its free trade zone this weekend. 55 pilot policies will be rolled out from Sunday and the rest will be added by the end of the year. Some of the policies include equal privileges for domestic and foreign banks and allowing foreign banks to set up branch offices in the Chinese market. So will Hong Kong be able to keep up with the competition? Well, one analyst we talked to said as long as there's no free flow of capital in and out of the zone to the rest of the country, it will pose limited competition to Hong Kong. Here's Jenny Lam again.
The signs are up and Shanghai is all set to step into the brave new world of free trade within the confines of a socialist economy. The free trade zone covers nearly 29 square kilometres and straddles 4 key logistics development districts in Pudong. Companies will be able to transfer capital from outside China into their offshore accounts held in Shanghai, convert the money into renminbi and use it to invest within the zone. Compared with the offshore renminbi business in Hong Kong, there will be relatively few investment channels in the new zone. But Beijing's plan is to gradually ease capital flow between the zone and the rest of the country. And that will open up lots of investment opportunities, for example, in properties and stocks. Chen Bo at the Shanghai University of Finance and Economics believes investors may be reluctant to put their money in Shanghai initially because of the risk of not being able to take it out again. And as long as that is the case, he thinks Shanghai will pose little competition to Hong Kong. The make or break of the free trade zone, he says, will depend on whether there will be new financial instruments to build investors' confidence. And as long as China's financial markets remain essentially a closed shop, he says, that will continue to raise questions on Beijing's determination to further reform and open up the country to the rest of the world. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Turning overseas now, Iran's foreign minister is set to hold talks with his counterparts of the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, plus Germany, later today. In a campaign to project a more moderate image abroad, Iran says it wants to jumpstart talks to resolve the dispute over its nuclear program. Alan Buckner reports.
Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif already met with his French counterpart, Laurent Fabius, on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly Wednesday. Zarif said he hopes there will be the same political will when he also meets with the foreign policy chiefs of the United States, Russia, Britain, China, and Germany later today. It will be a rare encounter between top American and Iranian officials. Speaking on a U.S. news channel, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani held open the possibility of direct talks with the United States if they can be arranged.
Well, after all, we're speaking of two countries who have had no relations for 35 years. So it's clear that to begin talks requires some preparation work.
There had been speculation that Rouhani and U.S. President Barack Obama might meet and shake hands following Rouhani's address to the General Assembly on Tuesday, but that didn't happen. Iran is seeking to have crippling sanctions against it eased. Rouhani once again said the country is only using its nuclear technology for energy and isn't interested in making a bomb.
The nuclear issue is become a symbol of development of sorts in Iran. The modern know-how required to go hand in hand with this technology is a symbol for the Iranian people. So I think hand in hand we must move forward to ensure that the international law is enforced, and once we abide by that, I think everything else is settled.
Making the rounds of U.S. TV, Rouhani called the Holocaust reprehensible, something his predecessor, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, said was a myth.
Any crime that happens in history against humanity, including the crime that the Nazis committed towards the Jews as well as non-Jewish people, is reprehensible and condemnable as far as we are concerned.
Rouhani said he hopes the nuclear talks can lead to an agreement within 3 to 6 months. Alan Buckney, TVB News.
The FBI said the Washington Navy Yard gunman was under the delusional belief that he was being controlled by low-frequency electromagnetic waves when he shot and killed 12 people. The FBI released surveillance video showing Aaron Alexis arriving at the Navy Yard in a rental car and entering one of the buildings there on September 16th. He is then seen holding a shotgun while walking through the hallways. The FBI says it appears that Alexis didn't target any specific individuals when he went on his rampage. Police now say it lasted about an hour before he was shot and killed. The FBI says records recovered from Alexis' computer and mobile phone reveal paranoia and mental health problems.